Have you ever truly paused to consider how little we actually know about the people standing right in front of us? We share elevators, classrooms, offices, and sidewalks with strangers, even with close friends and family. And yet, beneath those everyday interactions lies a mystery. Who are these people really? Every single day we encounter individuals who seem warm, kind, charismatic, even perfect. They smile at the right moments, say the right things, and carry themselves with a confidence that feels reassuring. But appearances can be beautifully deceptive. Behind that radiant smile might be a storm of insecurity. Behind confident words might be a fragile self-worth quietly trembling, holding it all together with sheer willpower. We live in a world obsessed with surface, with the way things look rather than how they really are. In a society fueled by filters, optics, curated posts, and polished personas, the masks people wear can easily overshadow the truth of who they really are. But here's the good news. You don't need to be a philosopher, psychologist, or a spiritual guru to begin seeing through the illusion. You just need to become a better observer. Not of what people say, but of how they exist. According to Jung, a modern thinker whose roots are anchored in ancient wisdom, there are subtle, yet powerful signs that reveal a person's authentic self. These are tiny cracks in the mask, fleeting moments when the truth escapes, often when they least expect it. These signs are not complex or mystical. In fact, they're ordinary, even mundane actions. But they are incredibly telling if you learn how to see. Imagine being able to detect truth, not in the grand things people do, but in how they move through the quiet moments of their day. Imagine reading the silent language of the soul, not by listening to what someone says, but by noticing the pauses between their words, the way they treat others, the subtle shifts in their presence. Once you learn to recognize these cues, these emotional fingerprints, you'll never see people the same way again. And perhaps more profoundly, you'll start to see yourself differently too. Before we dive deeper into this journey of uncovering human truth, I want to thank you. Thank you for being here, for being curious, for caring enough to explore beyond the surface. If you find value in what you're about to learn, consider subscribing to this channel or sharing this message with someone who values truth and growth as deeply as you do. We're not just building a conversation here. We're building a community of seekers, truth-tellers, and transformers. Now, let's begin. The smallest actions reveal the deepest truths. Jung once said, "The essence of a person is revealed not in their grand gestures, but in their smallest actions." It's a powerful thought, one that invites us to pay attention to what people do when no one is watching. So let's start with this question. How does someone treat those who cannot offer them anything in return? Think about the janitor cleaning the floor, the barista making coffee, the delivery person at the door. These are everyday interactions, easy to overlook, but they're some of the most revealing. An empathetic person makes no distinction between the CEO and the cleaning staff. Their kindness isn't performative. It's not there for show or to be seen. It's simply a part of who they are. On the other hand, someone who dismisses or degrades others based on status, power, or social worth often carries unseen insecurities. Arrogance, especially toward the powerless, is not just a character flaw. It's a psychological wound in disguise. It's a way of compensating for a deeper fear of being insignificant. The emotional cost of superiority, the need to feel superior, to be above someone, often stems from unresolved emotional pain. When people haven't come to terms with their own inadequacies or vulnerabilities, they externalize it by looking down on others. This creates a false sense of elevation, but at a steep cost: emotional maturity and connection. Pay attention to the subtle signs. Does this person thank the barista, or do they act like it's expected? Are they patient with the receptionist, or do they sigh in frustration when kept waiting? Do they ignore the homeless man on the sidewalk, or do they acknowledge him with humanity? Psychologists agree. These seemingly minor behaviors are far more telling than big, dramatic gestures. Because in moments where there's nothing to gain, no social points, no applause, what's left is the raw essence of a person. And as you observe others, don't forget to observe yourself. Ask yourself, how do I treat people who have nothing to offer me? Do I rush past them, or do I slow down enough to connect, even with just a smile? Because authenticity isn't loud. It doesn't wear a sign or shout from the rooftops. It lives in quiet choices. Surface charm versus subtle truth. Many of us fall into the trap of being drawn to charm. Someone who speaks eloquently, dresses well, appears generous or exciting. And while none of these are inherently bad, they can be misleading. Charm is often a rehearsed skill, something people use to gain approval. But authenticity, the kind that runs deep, is unrehearsed. It's often found in stillness, humility, consistency, and quiet acts of integrity. Take note of how someone treats those in vulnerable positions. Watch how they act under pressure. Observe how they speak about others when those people are not around. These are the unguarded moments, the ones that truly count. Here's a simple truth to remember. People don't reveal their character through what they say. They reveal it through what they tolerate, what they protect, and how they treat those they don't need. Looking through the window of empathy. Let's circle back to empathy, a trait that seems soft, but is actually one of the strongest indicators of a person's depth. Real empathy is not about saying, "I feel sorry for you." It's about stepping into another person's world and feeling with them, not for them. This requires emotional effort. It requires us to pause, set aside our own agenda, and be present with someone else's experience. Whether it's a friend, a stranger, or someone who serves us coffee. Empathy dissolves the invisible walls we've built between each other. And empathy is just as important internally. How you treat yourself when you mess up, whether you beat yourself up or forgive yourself, speaks volumes about how much room you're making for growth. Self-empathy is often overlooked, yet it's the foundation for how we treat others. If you're harsh with yourself, you're more likely to be critical of others. But if you can offer yourself compassion, you'll naturally extend it outward. A promise is such a simple thing, a few words strung together in a moment of intention. I'll call you tomorrow. I promise I'll be there. Trust me, I've got you. At first glance, a promise can feel light, even casual. But when you really think about it, a promise isn't just a commitment of action. It's a reflection of character. Shiheni referred to promises as soul contracts, sacred agreements that hold meaning beyond their surface. When someone gives their word, they are not just pledging to do something. They are declaring, in that moment, who they are, what they stand for, and how deeply they value truth and trust. And this is where the heart of the matter lies. Because in a world where flakiness, excuses, and half-truths have become normalized, keeping a promise has become one of the most underrated forms of integrity. Small promises, big implications. It's easy to assume that only big promises matter. Vows at a wedding, business contracts, formal commitments. But Shiheni taught that character isn't built in monumental declarations. It's shaped in the small, unseen decisions we make every day. Showing up on time when you say you will, calling back when you promised, following through on a favor you casually agreed to. These seem like minor acts, but each one is a thread in the fabric of your integrity. Over time, those threads either weave a tapestry of trust or slowly unravel your reliability. When someone consistently keeps their word, even in things that are easy to dismiss, they're showing you something very rare. Their internal compass is aligned with their external actions. Their values aren't situational, they're foundational. The cost of broken promises. Now let's look at the other side. What happens when someone breaks a promise? Life happens. People forget. Circumstances shift. That's reality. But the real insight lies in how someone handles it. When someone fails to follow through, do they take responsibility? Do they acknowledge the impact and offer an honest explanation? Or do they deflect, blame others, minimize the issue, or act like it never happened? How a person navigates their failures is often more telling than whether they failed at all. Brené Brown, a powerful voice in emotional vulnerability, says, "Vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Owning a broken promise with sincerity takes courage. It's uncomfortable. It requires humility. But it also builds real trust, because it shows that a person values truth over image. When someone refuses to acknowledge the impact of their broken word, they're not just avoiding discomfort. They're showing you that they prioritize their ego over your trust. And that's a red flag. Patterns over promises. Everyone stumbles now and then. That's human. But when someone consistently overpromises and underdelivers, it's no longer a mistake. It's a pattern. And patterns don't lie. Think about the people in your life. Is there someone who makes grand declarations but rarely follows through? Do they often leave you waiting, apologizing, or confused? If so, it's time to ask yourself, are they reliable? Or are they simply skilled at making things sound good in the moment? Words are easy. Actions require effort. And in the gap between what someone says and what they do, their true self is revealed. Now turn that lens inward. Are you keeping the promises you make to others? More importantly, are you keeping the promises you make to yourself? The quiet power of self-commitment. Self-respect is built by honoring your own word. When you set a goal, to eat better, wake up earlier, be more mindful, and follow through, you strengthen your trust in yourself. But when you constantly delay, excuse, or abandon those promises, something subtle begins to erode. You stop believing yourself. And that disbelief seeps into everything. So what does it look like to take your own promises seriously? It starts small. Saying no when you mean no. Carving out time for the things that matter. Being honest about what you can handle. Prioritizing your emotional well-being even when it's inconvenient. These aren't grand resolutions. They're everyday decisions. And just like with others, your soul listens to what you say and watches what you do. When your inner voice knows you'll follow through, something powerful happens. Self-trust is born. And that kind of trust radiates outward, shaping your relationships, your work, your energy, your peace. What promises say about a person? Let's bring it all together. Whether spoken or unspoken, promises are a reflection of what someone values. Consistency shows discipline. Follow-through reveals reliability. Honest apologies show humility. Avoidance often signals emotional immaturity. Overpromising can be a sign of people-pleasing, insecurity, or ego. So when evaluating someone's character, don't just listen to their words. Watch their patterns. Words without action are noise, but repeated action, especially when inconvenient, is a signal of true depth. And again, reflect this inward. Do you live in alignment with what you claim to value? Are your daily actions reinforcing the kind of person you say you are? Or is there a gap between your intentions and your impact? This journey of authenticity isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. When your words, values, and actions start to walk in the same direction, you become grounded. Others trust you, and more importantly, you trust yourself. These aren't grand resolutions. They're everyday decisions. And just like with others, your soul listens to what you say and watches what you do. When your inner voice knows you'll follow through, something powerful happens. Self-trust is born. And that kind of trust radiates outward, shaping your relationships, your work, your energy, your peace. What promises say about a person? Let's bring it all together. Whether spoken or unspoken, promises are a reflection of what someone values. Consistency shows discipline. Follow-through reveals reliability. Honest apologies show humility. Avoidance often signals emotional immaturity. Overpromising can be a sign of people-pleasing, insecurity, or ego. So when evaluating someone's character, don't just listen to their words. Watch their patterns. Words without action are noise, but repeated action, especially when inconvenient, is a signal of true depth. And again, reflect this inward. Do you live in alignment with what you claim to value? Are your daily actions reinforcing the kind of person you say you are? Or is there a gap between your intentions and your impact? This journey of authenticity isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. When your words, values, and actions start to walk in the same direction, you become grounded. Others trust you, and more importantly, you trust yourself. We live in a loud world, one that rewards speed, celebrates reaction, and glorifies hustle. In this relentless rhythm, it's easy to assume that strength is about being bold, fast, or dominant. But according to Sheheni, True strength isn't loud. It's quiet. It's grounded. It's still. He spoke often about inner stillness, not as a passive state, but as a profound source of power. Inner stillness is the ability to remain centered, calm and intentional even in the face of chaos. It is the difference between reacting and responding, between being triggered and being conscious. When you meet someone who possesses this quality, you feel it immediately. They don't flinch when the unexpected happens. They don't explode in frustration or crumble under pressure. Instead, they pause. They breathe. They respond with clarity, not impulse. Stillness is not inaction, it's conscious control. Stillness is often misunderstood. It's not about being passive, indifferent, or emotionally detached. It's not about suppressing emotion either. Inner stillness is about knowing when to act, and when to hold space for your thoughts, your feelings, and the reality unfolding around you. Think about the last time something didn't go your way. Maybe a plan fell through. Maybe someone upset you. Maybe life hit you with something completely unexpected. What was your first instinct? Did you react with anger, blame, or fear? Or were you able to stay centered, at least enough to observe your emotions before acting on them? Shiheni believed that our reactions to the outer world are direct reflections of our inner world. If you're constantly reactive, short-tempered, defensive, overwhelmed, it's likely that your internal environment is turbulent. And when your inner world is unstable, every small event in life feels like a threat. On the other hand, when you cultivate stillness within, you're no longer at the mercy of your environment. You become the calm in the storm. Not because life is perfect, but because you've developed the tools to face it with grace. The mirror of stressful situations. One of the most accurate ways to assess a person's emotional maturity is to observe how they behave in moments of stress. Anyone can appear composed when everything is going smoothly, but true character is revealed when pressure is applied. Do they panic? Do they blame others? Do they lash out? Or do they maintain awareness, regulate their emotions, and act with discernment? Let's be clear. We're all human. We all have moments when emotions get the best of us. The key difference lies in the ability to notice it and return to center quickly. People with emotional intelligence don't avoid emotion. They ride the wave without drowning in it. They don't need to dominate or dramatize. Their energy doesn't spike and crash. It flows with consistency, grounded in self-awareness. When you meet someone like this, someone who doesn't need to prove their power, you feel safe around them. Because safety is not just about protection from danger. It's about being in the presence of someone who is not a threat to your peace. Cultivating stillness in yourself. So how do you begin to develop this kind of presence? Inner stillness isn't something you stumble into. It's something you build, moment by moment, choice by choice. Here are some foundational practices. 1. Pause before you react. When something upsets you, take a breath. That 1-second pause is your entry point to presence. It gives you the space to respond rather than react. 2. Observe your emotions without judgment. Feelings aren't bad or good, they're messengers. Stillness doesn't require you to suppress them. It requires you to become the observer of them. 3. Spend time in solitude. Stillness grows in silence. In stillness, we begin to hear the quiet voice of intuition that often gets drowned out in noise. 4. Meditation or breathwork. These are not just wellness trends. They're ancient tools that train your nervous system to remain calm in chaos. Even 5 minutes a day can begin to rewire how you experience stress. 5. Practice conscious presence. When you're eating, eat. When you're walking, walk. When you're listening, really listen. Being fully present is the gateway to being fully alive. And it's the cornerstone of stillness. Stillness as emotional leadership. Shiheni once wrote, "The one who remains still while others tremble becomes a lighthouse." Inner stillness isn't just a personal virtue. It's a form of leadership. In relationships, families, teams, and communities, the calmest person in the room often becomes the anchor. They de-escalate tension. They hold space for discomfort. They remind others of what matters. And you don't need a title to lead in this way. Whether you're a parent, a friend, a partner, or a coworker, your presence alone can become a healing force. simply by remaining rooted in calm awareness. What stillness says about someone. Stillness is never accidental. It tells you something profound about a person, that they've done the inner work, that they've faced their own shadows, that they've learned to navigate discomfort without panic, that they value clarity over chaos. These people often don't talk about their strength. They embody it. And because of that, you trust them. Not because they're perfect, but because they're consistent, grounded, centered. And as always, this journey isn't just about how others behave. It's about reflection. Ask yourself, do I bring stillness or chaos into my relationships? How do I respond under pressure? Can I sit with discomfort without needing to control or escape it? Am I building the kind of presence that soothes others rather than stirs them? Because authenticity isn't just about what you reveal. It's about what you radiate.